You're watching Aurora 8, proud to be serving Aurora, Colorado, and all America City.
Good evening and welcome to the 2013 Candidates Forum featuring candidates for the Aurora City Council. I'm Kevin Hogan, President of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, and our organization, along with the Aurora Businesswomen, the Aurora Sentinel, the League of Women Voters, and the Aurora Election Commission, are pleased to sponsor tonight's forum. There are many critical issues facing our community, and we believe that these forums present the perfect opportunity for voters to see the candidates and hear their different perspectives on the many issues. We hope that by helping to inform voters, they can make the best choices in selecting the men and women to sit on the Aurora City Council. The decisions they make will affect our community for years to come. Now I'd like to turn this forum over to the evening moderator from the Aurora Business Women, Kathy Minister. Kathy?
Thank you, Kevin. This forum is just one of 3 that our organizations are sponsoring this election season. They all feature the candidates running for the Aurora City Council. In this session, we are featuring the candidates running for Ward 1 council seat. The format of tonight's forum will include questions that I will ask on behalf of the sponsors, as well as questions from the news team from the Aurora Sentinel. During this forum, that news team includes Aaron Cole, the managing editor for the Sentinel, and Dave Perry, the editor for the Aurora Sentinel. We know they have lots of great questions for our candidates this evening, and we thank them for joining us. Now it's time to meet the candidates. There are 2 candidates running for the Ward 1 council seat. Eric Bush is a U.S. Army veteran and child welfare specialist for the Colorado Department of Health and Human Services Children's Bureau. He plans to retire at the end of the year and, if elected, focus his time on representing Aurora constituents. He is currently a member of the Aurora Citizens Advisory Budget Committee and the North Aurora Neighborhood Association. He has lived in the original Aurora neighborhood for the past 7 years and is married to State Representative Janice May. Sally Mounier was appointed to the Aurora City Council in 2012. She works in career development for Denver-based RE/MAX Southeast, specializing in recruitment and retention of agents. She's lived in Ward 1 for 15 years and has lived in Aurora almost 40 years. She is a member of several city organizations, including the Fitzsimmons Development Authority, the Lowry Redevelopment Authority. In 2010, she lost a bid for state representative to State Representative Rhonda Fields. Those are our 2 candidates for Ward 1. Before we begin with opening statements, I'd like to let our candidates know how the questions will proceed this evening. I will be asking questions to the candidates on behalf of the sponsors, and the candidates will each have 1 minute to respond. Candidates will also be receiving questions from our media representatives from the Aurora Sentinel. Once more, they each will have up to 1 minute to respond. But additionally, for these media questions, they will be given a chance for a 30-second rebuttal. I would like to remind the candidates to pay close attention to our timekeepers. They'll be timing the opening and closing statements, answers to the questions, and the rebuttals. They will signal when there are 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and when time is up. We will now begin with our 1-minute opening statements, starting with Eric Bush.
Hi, I'm running for Ward 1 City Council because we need a leader on council who will stay focused on the people and neighborhoods in Ward 1. I want to make sure that our great potential for growth and development puts our community first. In addition, well, just to say a little bit about me, I grew up in Englewood, attended school at UNC and CSU, and have a master's degree in counseling. In addition to me, I have 2 sons who are veterans and a daughter who's currently serving overseas. I'll be a strong advocate for veterans if elected. My work experience includes running homeless and runaway youth programs, writing grants, and administering federal grants to states and tribes. I plan to retire, as said, at the end of the year, and will devote my full attention to council if elected. My wife and I have 4 kids and 2 grandchildren, and time's up.
Thank you. Sally Mounier.
Thank you. My name is Sally Mounier. I'm the Ward 1 City Council member. I was appointed last year to fill a vacancy created by Melissa Miller. In this past year, I have held 11 town hall meetings. I have walked our neighborhoods. I have knocked on over 1,000 doors and talked to hundreds of people. It should come as no surprise to anybody. We all want the same things: safe, stable neighborhoods where people can live, work, and play. To that end, my goal is crime reduction for the whole city, especially on Colfax. Finding the funding for the Moorhead Recreation Center is of extreme importance to me for their renovation and remodeling. Anschutz Center and a mix of housing options with recreational, art, and cultural activities year-round is very important to me. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will begin with our questions, and I will be asking the first question. Aurora, along with many communities, has felt the first-hand effects of gun violence. What do you think the city's role should be in addressing gun safety? And we will begin with Sally Mounier.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a good question. In municipal governments, we deal ourselves with public safety, infrastructure, cultural activities, and the like. As far as gun safety goes, I do believe that it is a Second Amendment right for people to hold and bear arms. So I am against any infringement on them taking away our Second Amendment rights. As far as the municipalities go, we have very good programs in the city of Aurora to, as far as gun safety goes and the like. I'm satisfied with that.
Okay, thank you. And Eric Bush?
Well, I supported the state legislation for the most part that passed this past year, particularly that which required background checks for private gun sales, extended that to private gun sales, and the law that requires for concealed carry permits that there be face-to-face contact and hands-on training, not just some half-hour internet deal. You know, I think the biggest threat with guns is to our police and emergency personnel who in the line of duty are at risk. And I think the city does have a role in protecting our service people and in promoting gun safety. I also would favor any kind of legislation proposed that would make it more difficult for severely mentally ill folks to have guns unless they've passed some sort of specialized training.
Thank you. I'll have more questions for you later, but we'll move on to some questions from our media representatives from the Aurora Sentinel. You'll have 1 minute to answer, and candidates will be afforded 30-second rebuttals. We'll begin our media questions with the Aurora Sentinel editor, Dave Perry.
Thanks, Kathy. The question I've got has to do with the recent history on Colfax, and that the art district up there has been struggling for some time, and there's been a lot of different projected ideas of how to redevelop that area. But what comes and goes all the time is whether or not to make the art district succeed and bring businesses in that will vitalize the area there, whether there needs to be a limitation of some of the businesses that a lot of arts-like businesses don't want to be involved with, and that's like pawn shops and payday loan services and things like that. And I was wondering if you would sponsor legislation that would limit the number of pawn shops and those kind of businesses on Colfax and the Colfax area, or whether you think they have the right to prosper and let the market drive what they want to do up there.
We'll start with Eric Bush.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I don't know about legislation to sort of control or promote a different kind of business on Colfax, but I do think that we need to continue to support and to what extent the city can enhance and promote both the Arts District and the Denver Urban Renewal Authority efforts, as well as the Fitzsimmons Renewal Authority efforts to develop and revitalize Colfax. I think as the city, you know, I think those kinds of stores are there because there's a need in the community. And I think as the need changes, some of that will go away. I think we need more unique shops and restaurants and the potential to have the kind of old town that other cities have done, and we should look to them for how they did it, whether it's Englewood or Commerce City or Fort Collins.
Sally.
Thank you very much. I'm a free market person, so my answer is pretty short, actually. I say the free market should choose what is going to go in on Colfax in the Arts District. Just as an example, there's a new business going in at 1421 Dayton. Let me give them a plug. 1421 Dayton. It is a kitchen and bath remodel. The showroom is at 1421 Dayton. It is absolutely beautiful. Will compete with the best in Cherry Creek, to be honest with you. No incentives, no nothing. The owner of the establishment decided this is where he wanted to be. And in addition, I think you all know that a brewery is coming in, and then we are working on an Italian bakery, and I can't talk about what else is coming in because it's still in negotiation stages, but we're going to see wonderful things in the Arts District.
Any rebuttal questions?
I'm just going to take that both of you would not look to limiting those kind of businesses on Colfax then.
I would not.
Okay.
Now a question from Aaron Cole, the managing editor of the Aurora Sentinel.
Thanks, Kathy. My question has to do with Colfax surveillance cameras and the cameras placed on there, and by extension, license plate readers. Is that a viable option to limit vandalism and maybe even petty crime there on Colfax, or is that a unnecessary infringement on the people who are there anyways?
That'll go to Sally, please.
Thank you. Let's distinguish between the license reader and photo red light cameras. And we are distinguished, your question goes to the license plate readers, does it not?
No, my question is specifically for the surveillance cameras on Colfax Avenue,
Okay.
as far as for property crime and not photo red light.
Okay. My understanding is Colfax itself, there was a reduction from 2011 to 2012 of 6.7% crime reduction just on Colfax, in large part because of the surveillance cameras. I'm very much in favor of the surveillance cameras. They have proven to work. They have proven to catch the bad guys, which is what we want, especially on Colfax. Thank you.
And Eric?
Yeah, I don't really know, so I'm going to just give an opinion, which is that, you know, if you watch shows like Person of Interest, it seems like a part of what comes with living in the 21st century is surveillance cameras everywhere. And I don't have an objection offhand to that use on Colfax, particularly if it helps reduce crime there. You know, I've lived near Colfax for the last 7 years, and personally, and it's totally anecdotal, I haven't experienced any crime at all.
I guess as a follow-up question then, would you support city efforts and specifically city money if those cameras are effective to put those cameras in other places, say along Havana, along Peoria, if it came at an additional, we'll say, fairly significant cost to the city?
Sally?
As I said in my opening remarks, reducing crime is my #1 priority, particularly on Colfax. Absolutely, I will support funding for surveillance cameras. I'm on the Public Safety Policy Committee, and it hasn't come forward yet. I'm looking forward to it coming. Thank you.
No, I don't think I would support more surveillance at a significant cost to the city. I think, you know, the city has access, or police have access to video feeds from private businesses, and they can use that. And, you know, in certain strategic places, maybe it makes sense to have surveillance video, but in a great expansion of that, I would not support.
Thank you, candidates. And now we'll have another question from Dave Perry.
I'm going to stay with the Arts District here for a second because that's such an important part of your ward up there. And, you know, some of the other arts districts that have been successful here in the metro area, especially on Santa Fe and Denver, depended heavily on a lot more than just support and boosterism from the city council. It took a lot of money. And I wonder if either of you would be willing to support some kind of cash infusion, and if so, how you would talk the rest of the city council into diverting even more money than what the city already does into that ward.
We'll start with Eric. I'm sorry.
I would support that. I think the first place to look, and maybe that look has already been taken, is with endowments, whether that be the Piton Foundation or Stapleton Foundation or some of the other funders of arts that are out there, as well as Go Colorado money or any other sources that could be utilized to subsidize the expansion of the arts district. Beyond that, yeah, I think if we have a surplus in the budget and it's not spoken for, it's one-time money, I think that's a viable priority to look at.
Okay.
Did you have anything?
Sally?
Oh, Sally, I'm sorry.
Thank you. This is a hard question to answer in 1 minute, and I'm not sure I'm going to do it justice. Maybe we can talk afterwards, because I have some ideas. Just specifically, if you think about Dayton Street, and you think about between 1400 Dayton and Colfax, there's a series of homes, most of which are up for sale. Earlier this week, I met with the city manager to talk to him about perhaps the city investing in those 4 properties and turning the alley into an arts, a walkable arts district. He loved the idea and is going to carry it forward. And if your question, how would I would support something like that, and I would work very hard with my colleagues to convince them to support likewise.
Any rebuttals?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, candidates. And once more, a question from Aaron Cole.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a little bit about the day laborers up on Colfax. And a while ago, there was a fairly sizable controversy at the city level as to whether the city can support or pay for some sort of housing or facilities for the day laborers who congregate along the street to be, you know, when it gets cold or use restrooms or whatnot. Would you support a further expansion on day labor facilities on Colfax, or is it necessary, is that a necessary function of city government to provide facilities for those people who are there almost on a daily basis already?
Sally.
Thank you. One of the first things that I did when I became a city council member was go to the police department and say, look, we've got to do something with the day laborers. My thought is we find them a place undercover where they can learn English, where they're not going to be ripped off by every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and that they've got a bathroom and so forth. Since that time, there has been work that has gone on within the city. It's very quiet, but I would, if I had to guess right or die, I would bet you that we are going to find a place for the day laborers off of Dayton onto Colfax where they will be under roof, where they will have a bathroom. I'm very encouraged by the activity that the city is doing. We have city property that we may utilize. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I would be in support of a facility for day laborers. However, I think the larger issue is the fact that most of these folks are undocumented, and the employers that employ them are employing them illegally. And what we really need on a larger level is federal legislation for comprehensive immigration reform. Chances of that happening with current Congress, I'm actually a federal employee currently furloughed, aren't great, but I think in the long run, you know, it's something that really needs to be addressed with support and pressure from cities and the state. In terms of that reality, it seems like the city's been all over the map. I think a decade ago there was a facility for day laborers, and then more recently there were attempts to make it illegal for them to loiter about. I agree with Sally. You know, they're here. They need assistance in having at least a place to be, but I think we really need to address the bigger issues there.
Okay. I guess a follow-up question would be, as far as public safety is concerned, is that a function of the police to talk to the day laborers up there and make sure that they understand their rights as workers, or is that more of a function of the nonprofits like El Centro to come in and try and educate them as far as the laws and legalities of what they're doing? I guess the question is should the police be more involved with the day laborers, or should they leave that up to somebody else?
Sally?
Actually, the police are involved with them to make, because there's virtually almost no crime going on Dayton where the day laborers congregate. But in the past, drug dealers have infiltrated, and so the police have to be involved. They've got to keep track. They've got to be aware of what is happening there. There's, 50, 60, sorry, time's up.
Eric?
Yeah, I think that there is a role for both. I think for example, Understand Rights for All People has a day labor or a temporary labor program where they certify the potential employers, provide education to the day laborers, and keep it above board. And I like that kind of a proposal and a solution better than just having them hang out.
Thank you, candidates. We'll go back to the press in a few moments, but I'll be asking the next question. Aurora is getting a new light rail line by 2016, yet funding for adequate parking at all of the stations is an issue. Some neighborhoods are worried about the effects of overflow parking. How do we address these various light rail parking concerns? And we'll begin with Eric Bush.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the light rail. I mean, it's on-shoots. I mean, if you look over on, what would that be, 15th, or there's, during the day, that strip up the Potomac from where the Panera Bread is totally filled with cars. But as far as the light rail itself, you know, the RTD agreement with the city was that those would be kiss and rides. In other words, if there were any parking, it would be very minimal. And I think that can work if, for example, on the Fitzsimmons Parkway relocation proposal, you know, there'll be a shuttle from Anschutz to take employees and patients in and out, so you wouldn't expect a lot of people to park there. People that are going to use the light rail to get downtown or to the airport are more likely to go up to Smith Road. So I think it really, you have to look at each specific instance and look at in that context. I think the city does need a comprehensive plan for both parking and traffic in and around the Anschutz campus.
Sally Benier?
Thank you very much. I'm really concerned with just Ward 1 at the moment, so I'm not comfortable addressing parking for the entire city, although I do think we need a comprehensive plan. Let's just talk about parking at the Anschutz Medical Campus. If you want to start a fight, and I don't care if you're the president or just some old intern, you want to talk about fighting, talk about parking on Anschutz. It is a virtual hotbed of excitement. Currently, what's happening is they're deciding where the station is going to go, if it's going to go, and it's what it appears, it's going to go north of the Fitzsimmons Parkway. The campus is working on parking around that facility, and I expect by the end of the year to have that come before the Fitzsimmons Redevelopment Authority.
Thank you.
Is there an opportunity for us to add or rebut?
You can do that in your closing statement.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, candidates. We will now return to some additional questions from the Aurora Sentinel Media representatives, and we'll begin with Dave Perry.
I'll kind of give you that chance now because I want to stay with this. Currently, the City Council is looking at a plan that would spend approximately $26 million on a police and fire training center. At the same time, this parking issue is very important, and previously the voters turned down a non-taxing issue that would have provided money for part of the money would have gone to these light rail parking things. I don't think anybody's kidding themselves that once this thing opens and becomes popular, there's going to be a huge shortage of parking up there more in the Morris Heights area, and the neighbors around there are not going to like it when that spills over into their neighborhood. Do you think it's a good idea that the city make the police training facility a priority for capital expenditure, or should they pull back on that and look at these kind of issues? And also, you know, you talked about a recreation center expansion at Moorhead. Is that where the priority should be for a large capital expenditure program right now?
We'll start with Sally.
Thank you. Originally, I was for the training facility, but as I have investigated and thought this through, I am going to be pulling back from a full-bore training facility. We have many, many needs in the city of Aurora. At least one more recreation center is critical importance. But to get to your question, it isn't as if our police and fire are not trained well. They are well trained. What is the issue with the facility is that it's old, it's run down, it's dilapidated, but the training is good. So coming from that stance, I'm saying let's pull back, let's look at more, at least another recreation center. And then as far as parking goes, again, I'm Ward 1. I believe we're going to have parking and adequate parking. I'll probably live to regret saying adequate. Sorry, my time's up.
Shall I go?
Please.
I think that, yeah, parking is an issue. One of the things the city can do, due to state legislation passed last year, is enter into agreements with private providers and developers of parking structures that would be fee paid. And and the legislation includes that fees have to be reasonable. You know, I believe even the employees at Anschutz have to pay for parking if they want to park there, which is one of the problems with parking outside the campus potentially, is people that work there parking off campus. So I think there needs to be some look at traffic and parking control, as well as the development of parking structures that could be funded without taking the money directly out of the budget. I think we can do both. I think we can have a new police and fire training facility, as well as develop adequate parking as the parking need and demand grows.
I'm going to go just a little farther with this, because I'd say there's a lot of people in the city who would disagree with you that there is not enough money for both, and that the $26 million, once it's spent, it's gone. And that if there is a larger capital improvement plan, it's going to mean going to voters for a tax increase at this point, that there's really not a lot of other options. Given that, would either of you agree to ask voters for a capital improvement plan and a property tax increase or some other type of tax increase to go with that, to provide money for parking and police training and rec centers and whatever else a group of people or the city council would decide is a priority?
Sally?
Well, I am really all for the citizens of Aurora deciding how they're going to be taxed and at what level. I think the question is going to be is if we were to do it, and I'm not sure that we're going to do anything like that. I don't want to give the impression to the people out there that we're thinking about an initiative to raise their tax. We are not, folks. So, but if we were going to do that, it would be, my time is up, I'm sorry. Dang.
Eric?
You know, I would support a bond proposal or an initiative such as the one that failed a couple of years ago. I think part of the problem there was that it wasn't well marketed. It wasn't as clear and transparent as it might have been, and I think that's key to gaining voter support. I don't know if the time's right to do that now, again, I've gone to several presentations of RTD, and I really think you're overstating the parking issue, and I think it is something that can take care of itself with fee-paid parking to the extent there is a need.
Okay.
Now a question from Aurora Sentinel Managing Editor, Aaron Cole.
Thanks. Now I'd like to talk about red light cameras. I know I'm not alone in that I've gotten that little letter in the mail and with my picture, and the city of Aurora wants some money. Would you support continuing photo red light cameras in the city? And would you support continuing and maybe expanding those photo red light cameras across Colfax if that came up?
Eric, we'll start with you.
You know, in a interview or a questionnaire to the Sentinel, I said I opposed red light camera, but and I too am a recipient of one of those. You know, my issue is I don't like the way it's currently conducted. Apparently, that camera goes off if you enter the yellow, even if you can't safely stop before the yellow turns on. And that was my case. So I said, well, I'll challenge this. I'll go to whatever the hearing thing is. And the letter you get does, you know, it makes it very difficult to challenge, doesn't really give you any specific information, but encourages you with several paragraphs to go ahead and pay the fine. So I think the format needs to be changed. On the other hand, there is evidence, data that supports that it does improve safety. So I'm all for that.
Sally?
Thank you. I was one of 4 council members about 2 months ago who voted against photo red light, extending their contract for 1 year. We were 4 votes. I need 2 more, which I will work very, very hard over the next year to get those 2 votes so we can vote away photo red lights. Very firm. This is an invasion of our privacy rights. And Aurora is on a slippery slope when they inaugurated those photo red lights. And for the audience's understanding, there's 14 photo red light intersections. 10 of them are in Ward 3. Now, you go figure that out. Why would the folks in Ward 3 have to suffer like that? It's just inequitable, an invasion of privacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to stick with that just a little bit longer, if that's okay. If it turns out that it's not only self-sustaining, but also revenue generating for the police department and can afford to pay for something else, is that okay?
And we'll start with Eric.
Well, to sort of respond to my opponent, I find it kind of contradictory that she would be in favor of surveillance video, but find that red light photo is an invasion of privacy. I don't get the logic there, but nevertheless, you know, if it does improve safety, results in fewer accidents, then I think it's an appropriate use. I imagine the reason there are most of it is grouped around Ward 3 is that's where the big intersections are around the mall in that area. I'm not sure I answered your question.
Sally.
I'm not really sure I understand the question. What could you repeat it, please?
If photo red lights are not only pay for themselves, but can also pay for other parts of public safety, pay for, we'll say, salary or improvements to the police department, whatever that may be, if it, you know, could be tens of dollars, could be thousands, could be hundreds of thousands, is it okay? Is that an okay revenue source for public safety?
It's not an okay revenue source. I'm sorry. The photo red lights need to be gone from our city. And just to answer Eric's question, I would like to explain the difference. The difference with the photo red light is you are taking a picture of the driver of the car, regardless who you're with or if you're putting on your lipstick or picking your nose. It takes the picture. The surveillance camera takes a picture of the license plate. Totally different subject.
Thanks.
And now we'll have another question from Dave Perry.
Another issue that is pretty difficult up on the Colfax corridor has to do with homeless residents. And we regularly hear from business owners and some residents up there who say that the city just really doesn't do enough. And especially since Denver has really put the push and crush on their homeless population, that's moved further east up along the Colfax corridor, some of the creek corridors as well. And I wonder what idea you have that would appease them and make them feel at least like the city's doing more than what it's doing right now to keep homeless people from being such a problem to the businesses and residents up there.
And we'll begin with Sally Mounier.
Excuse me, Dave, who are we appeasing?
The business owners along Colfax, that's who we hear from mostly, just saying that they are frustrated, that they understand the plight of the homeless, and they're sympathetic that these are some people who need some help. What they're feeling like is that there is no agency or anyone helping them, and so they're the ones who are becoming social service agencies to this population, providing food, handouts, kind of looking over the shoulder, and what their fear is that these people tend to chase other customers away.
Customers away, sure. All right. Let's go back for just a minute and remember what the municipalities are responsible for, which is public safety, transportation, infrastructure, maybe recreational facilities and libraries. Nowhere is it said that the city of Aurora as a municipality has to take care of the homeless. Having said that, though, I surely do not want anyone freezing to death or going hungry. That is not my intention. I do believe this belongs to the county and the state and the federal government. I do not believe that it is a function of the city of Aurora to provide housing for the homeless.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I think that there is more that we could do, and it is tied to revitalization of Colfax. I mean, I can see where it's a detriment to have homeless folks hanging around in Fletcher Plaza and so on and so forth, much like the day laborer problem. And I think, I agree that it should primarily be a county and a state problem. One of the things that the city should do is get together with the state to get in line to utilize the Fort Lyon facility that they're developing, and particularly for homeless vets. We need to do more to support the programs that do serve the homeless and homeless vets, both in the city as well as that state program. Yeah, I think also there's refugee money, and I'm not sure that's a part of the homeless population, but we haven't really utilized TANF refugee funds from either Adams or Arapahoe counties, and I think we need to work much more closely with the counties.
Sally, you're willing to support a day center for migrant workers, which is not the city's responsibility. I wonder why you're not willing to support a day center for homeless people, which is also, as you pointed out, not really the city's responsibility.
Well, Dave, you have to pick your priorities, I think. And in picking a priority, my priority would be getting the day laborers under a shelter where they have a bathroom and so forth and so on, as I already mentioned. As far as the homeless goes, I can show you studies that say the homeless are homeless because they want to be. They do not want to have, they want the sky to be their roof.
Okay.
Did you have a question for Eric as well?
Yeah, I think understood what your position is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're going to return to Aaron Cole for another question.
Somewhat related, but a little bit different is a question that comes up, I think, quite often is whether or not the city should incorporate itself into its own county, the city and county of Aurora. And I know that there's maybe a study coming forward or coming up to study the viability of whether that would work. Would you support the city becoming its own county? Why or why not? And what are some of the advantages of doing that?
Eric, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's important to wait for the results of that comprehensive study that's that the city is contracted for. You know, particularly in Ward 1, though, where we're Adams County to Colfax North and Arapahoe County, Colfax South, it becomes a little complicated, and sometimes as a resident, you feel like you're ignored equally by both counties. So you might think, well, yeah, if we were the city and county of it, it might be better for us. But I just think there's so many issues that I would hate to weigh in without really looking at what the pros and cons are from the perspective of the professionals. I think, you know, Broomfield's, it's worked out for them, and it took, I think, 10 years to get there. And so it's a long-term proposition, and we really need to wait for the results of that study.
Sally?
Yes, I too will wait for the study to come forward. And then my plan is to have extensive meetings with my constituency and get their feedback, their impression, and I will do what my constituents ask me to do in my vote. I am inherently a little nervous because it will no doubt raise taxes to build a county jail, provide for a sheriff's department perhaps. So I'm a little apprehensive. You have to remember that the people in my ward on average earn $16,000 a year less than the median income for the rest of the city of Aurora. So I have to be very, very cautious about where we're going to go. I will lay it out to the folks, and I will do as they bid.
Did you have a rebuttal?
I do. I think we're all aware here of how quickly the wheels turn in government. And like you said, the Broomfield proposition took a long time. And some of the discrepancies of having two different counties in Aurora, Adams and Arapahoe County, kind of manifested itself during the flood, whereas Adams County was quicker or received federal assistance maybe a little bit quicker than Arapahoe did, and Arapahoe required FEMA to go door to door to survey the damage, and there's still kind of no telling how that works. Does the city have a role in, while that study's going on, while people are trying to figure out whether it would be good or viable, in kind of maybe expediting that process for both, for north of Colfax, south of Colfax? Can the city do anything?
Eric, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the city really needs to reach out to both Adams and Arapahoe counties, the county commissioners, and really work harder on forming collaborative and cooperative relationships. I think that's a need currently that isn't really being addressed. And I think if I get elected, will be one of my priorities.
And Sally?
Thank you. During the aftermath of the flooding, I have to be honest with you, I did not see that there was any discrepancy between the Arapahoe side and the Adams County side. I thought we did magnificently well and worked very, very well together.
Thank you, candidates. I'll be asking the next question. What is your position on how the city should go about implementing the Colorado voter-approved legalized marijuana laws? Let's start with Sally Monnier.
Thank you. While I was not supportive of recreational marijuana, the voters have spoken, and I have gone to every ad hoc committee meeting for the implementation of recreational marijuana. My thrust basically is to ensure that Colfax and Havana do not become what South Broadway is in Denver. In other words, a pot shot every other block, basically. I was very successful in getting hospitals in the committee. I was successful in getting hospitals to be excluded in the zoning regulations along with schools, daycare, and churches. So I will continue my activities there.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, you know, in Ward 1, I think 65% of the voters voted in favor of Amendment 64, and I think the city has an obligation to implement adult recreational marijuana use within in an expeditious manner, but also in a manner that protects the safety and creates space between shops and away from schools and that kind of thing. And I think the city's on the right path on that.
Thank you. This concludes the question and answer portion of this evening's forum. You will each now have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing, beginning with Eric.
Yeah, I'm hoping to bring the city and counties together to work more cooperatively and in a shared way on issues that are common to both, and also with the state. I'm asking for your vote for City Council, and thanks for the opportunity to present here.
Thank you. And Sally Monnier?
Thank you. I thought I would take this time to tell just a little bit about myself. I came to Colorado 40 years ago as a single mom of 4 children, ages 4 to 13. I came to Colorado because I thought this was a wonderful place to raise children. A year and a half after I moved into Denver, I moved to Aurora, and I haven't left. My children are all now grown and gone. I'm a grandmother of 12 people, 9 of whom live in Aurora. So I have and I just want to convey to you that what I'm doing now as a city council member is I'm giving back to the community that was so good and so generous and so kind to me as a single mom. We thrived, we survived, we're doing well. Thank you. Oh, I asked for your vote also. I forgot about that. I asked for your support and your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Once more, thank you, candidates, for your participation in tonight's forum. And a special thanks to our media representatives from the Aurora Sentinel for their participation. I'd also like to thank Aurora Channel 8 for the coverage of this forum. We'd like to remind the viewers that this forum, along with other forums, will be repeated here on Channel 8 throughout the month of October, up to Election Day. Schedules can be found in the Aurora Sentinel or at auroragov.org/Aurora8. The forums will also be available on the web for viewing at your convenience on the Aurora YouTube channel at youtube.com/the Aurora channel. We encourage all voters to know the candidates, know the issues, and be sure to exercise your right to be heard and cast your vote this election year. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Good evening. Thank you.